Yo guys, what is up? Mike's in our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we're going over our updated crit cast on shock lightning arrow Deadeye. This is a build that I've been really enjoying. I went and tried the crit version, and then I tried the non-crit version, and I personally preferred the crit version a whole lot more. And so this is the version I've decided to like really push further. And so I wanted to get this update out because we have patch notes coming out in a few days at the time we're recording this, and obviously I think this build might be subject to change, so I wanted to show you guys kind of where I'm at with the build right now and kind of what we pushed it to. And so I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. So we're going to talk changes first. The very first thing that I have changed is I put Font of Rage in our Orb of Storms. I don't know why I wasn't doing this before. A viewer actually recommended me this, but Font of Rage allows our Orb of Storms to generate rage for us. Rage is specifically a 1% more attack damage per 1 rage gained. If we're standing next to our Orb of Storms, we're going to be gaining rage. So real quick, let's buff ourselves up with some Tailwind stacks. We've got 112,000 lightning arrow damage right now, and when we put down our Orb of Storms, you'll see that number just goes up. We're at 123, 126, 129, 130, 131. And obviously, you know, we're not using Lightning Arrow for bossing, but when we are doing our bossing, our rotation is going to be that we put down all of these lightning rods to prep. In this game, like most bosses aren't immediately targetable, so you have like a few seconds to prep beforehand. We're going to put down our lightning rods. We're going to put down our cursed ground, which is going to proc conductivity on them. And then once the boss gets going, we're going to start, you know, basically raining lightning rods down on the cursed ground with the ball lightning. And that's going to just give us a ton of rage stacks. We were at like 20 there. As long as we're attacking, we're going to be getting those rage stacks. And so it pumps up our damage a ton. For the like rest of the supports that we're using on conductivity, we've got Curse Ground, Heightened Curse, and Persistence. I really like Curse Ground just because it allows us to do exactly what I said, is we can kind of set up our damage beforehand, and then when the boss spawns, they're on the Curse Ground. They're going to have all of their like lightning res shredded or reduced, so that is very, very nice. On our Lightning Arrow, our supports have stayed the same. I am using Primal Armament, Martial Tempo, Ambush, Long Shot, and Heft. Ambush is 100% more or a double our crit chance. So if we have 40% crit chance when we're shooting against enemies at full life, which is all the time, we are going to be getting 100% more. So we're at 80% crit chance, which is disgusting. There is some nodes in the tree that's like, you know, 100% increased crit chance when you're shooting at enemies on full life. That is very separate than Ambush, which is 100% more. That 100% more is quite literally double our crit. So that is super valuable. On Lightning Rod for mapping, we're using Close Combat, Scatter Shot, Concentrated Effect, Conduction, and Lightning Pen. And I specifically say for mapping because, you know, we've got some really good supports on Lightning Arrow. And when I do like a Zesht or an Arbiter, I do swap Primal Armament for Close Combat. That, you know, Primal Armament is 25% more unconditional versus Close Combat is 25% more conditional, so we just like guarantee this damage. Just a little swap there. And then I swap Heft for Lightning Pen. The big thing for Lightning Pen is it's nice to have for mapping when we don't need to make sure enemies are cursed, but when we're going to be going against a Zesht or an Arbiter or whatever, we're going to want to make sure that the ground is cursed and that their lightning res is shredded. And so conductivity is going to give us, with the Heightened Curse, 41% reduced lightning res. I could technically get this a lot higher. This is level 13 spell. I've got like almost 200 int, but you know, I'll change that later. But with the 41% and our inherent like 29%, we're basically shredding all lightning res. So that's why we don't need Lightning Pen on Lightning Rod when we're bossing, because they're going to be procced with conductivity. Then for our Herald setup, I made a whole like FAQ video on how to get the Herald of Ice explosions to proc for the most amount of clear. If you want a full like 5-minute in-depth explanation on that, I'll refer you to that video. But basically, our Lightning Arrow isn't actually like freezing. I mean, it's definitely contributing to cold buildup. Currently, my Lightning Arrow is dealing 2,685 cold damage, but the big thing that our Lightning Arrow is doing is it's shocking basically every single shot, and when we're shocking enemies, we get the Herald of Thunder buff. This reads, while active, killing shocked enemies with attack damage will cause our subsequent attacks to release lightning bolts. These lightning bolts are going to be dealing 286 attack damage, which is, massive. Whoopsies. But note, like how my lightning arrow was doing like 2,000 cold damage. My Herald of Thunder is set up so we're dealing 4,303 cold damage. So our Herald of Thunder, which is getting a ton of cold damage from cold infusion, and then more freeze buildup with glaciation, is what's really freezing for us. And so our shots are proccing Herald of Thunder. Herald of Thunder is freezing, and then that's proccing Herald of Ice. Herald of Ice, we've got lightning infusion on, so that this does more lightning damage to help it proc Innervate and cast and like proc shocks on enemies even more, so that it's going to be getting Innervate with Cold Mastery and Magnified Effect. So the full setup on Herald of Thunder is Ice Bite, Lightning Mastery, Glaciation, Cold Infusion. And then on Herald of Ice, we've got Innervate, Lightning Infusion, Cold Mastery, and Magnified Effect. This basically allows these things to double proc each other, which is incredibly powerful. And if you get some added cold damage on your gear, this becomes really, really easy to do. Next up, we've got Wind Dancer with Cannibalism. We get Life on Kill, super nice, Blind, and Maim, so that if we do get hit, enemies are not going to be able to hit us a second time because they're going to be blinded, they're going to be slowed. Then we've got Cast on Shock. In this, I've got Ball Lightning, Inspiration, Eye of Winter, and Impetus. Our Cast on Shock, once again, is not dealing any damage for us. What it is doing is it's triggering Ball Lightnings, which are going to trigger all of our Lightning Rods at faster than we ever could. Ball Lightning triggers every 0.2 seconds, which is insanely fast. That's why they're proccing so many lightning rods. We're sending them out like crazy. And then Eye of Winter is what's giving us a 100% crit chance on bosses. These things fly out and impact critical weakness. That gives us the 100% crit damage on bosses. I'm at over 500% more damage when we're critting. So 100% crit chance on bosses. All of our hits are doing 500% more damage, and that's why we're dealing so much damage on bosses. And then lastly, I think in the last video, I was using Ghost Dance. Still like Ghost Dance for bosses, but Grim Feast is just so powerful. You have to use this for mapping. It's so good for mapping. We can basically double our energy shield. Currently, I'm at 861 energy shield, so we're getting 1,600, 1,700 energy shield when we're running around on maps, which we're killing everything, and every single thing's going to be giving us a bunch of energy shield. This is just such a powerful buff for survivability in maps. Then I've got it with Clarity for some more mana regen while it's active. For the skill tree, I've actually made quite a few changes that you'll note, and the old skill tree that I was using was really good, but I've leveled up actually a few times since I posted that video. So we had some more points. We tried to optimize a bit more. I'm currently level 94. And right now with our skills, we're going to be kind of branching out over these nodes, Blur and Cat-like. I really do like these nodes, and the 4% movement speed is super great. The only thing is these are not actually giving us that much evasion rating. So basically what I substituted these out, I substituted them out for Subterfuge Mask. I was going back and forth between picking up Spectral Ward and Subterfuge Mask, and now we just have both of them. This is giving us a ton of evasion rating and a ton of energy shield from both Spectral Ward and Subterfuge Mask. That's why we're at currently 861 energy shield with only a single energy shield piece on, which when we get to our gear, we'll talk about. I'm sitting at 73% evasion rating, by the way, with full Tailwind stacks up. And Subterfuge Mask, I tested this when we're wearing a high energy shield helmet, will give us more than these evasion nodes. So that's kind of what we substituted there. But basically, we're picking up Honed Instinct. We're going down, grabbing our Quiver effect. I got rid of these 3 nodes originally. We weren't going this route, and I was coming down from this node, grabbing these evasion nodes, and then we're going here. This costs 1 more point, basically, to get over here, but we get an additional jewel slot. And I thought that was pretty worth. I don't have any crazy jewels. There's these jewels that cost multiple divines. This is a lightning damage, crit damage with bows gem. Even though it doesn't have quiver effect, it's still a lot of damage for us. For example, if I take this off, I lose 6,000 damage. And so, you don't need to spend a bazillion on quiver effect jewels. Quiver effect jewels are the best jewels you can get, but they can really break your bank if you're building on a budget. we're going over here. I've got this jewel. This is the best jewel I own. This is an evasion rating, crit chance, crit damage, bonuses from Quiver. This one cost me 5 divines. Definitely the best jewel that I own. I'd like to get more, but most of this was a pretty underpriced one, honestly. Anything else that I've looked at for like this kind of stuff is like 30, which is ridiculous. Then we're coming up here. We got our acceleration for movement speed, skill speed. We're grabbing sniper and feathered fletching for some crit chance. Then we come over here for heartbreaking, more crit chance. This attacks have +1 crit chance, by the way, if you didn't know, is quite literally moving our crit chance on our bow from 9.43 to 10.43, which is our base. So that's really, really massive. If we like lose that, we would lose a ton of crit chance. Grabbing calamity for all the extra cold and lightning damage, obviously. And then the other jewel here, I've got attack speed bonuses for my quiver and shock magnitude. This one was like really cheap. This was like a 30 exalted jewel. I don't know why, but that's what they were selling it for, so I will not complain. But basically, you can grab some quiver effect ones with like not crazy stuff and get them for cheaper. So that's the jewel I got there. Then we're coming up to our Against the Darkness Time Loss Diamond. This thing is so much damage for the build. I will show you at the end of the video how I search for these because I forgot to do that in the FAQ, so that's my bad. But this is giving me about 20,000 damage. All of our notables are getting extra damage as lightning, which is super, super valuable. And all of these little nodes now also give us 1% increased max life. So we're going to grab all of the notables and as many like relevant small nodes for us. And then we're moving over here to Harmonic Generator. This is a sick node. Part of the reason why we're crit, 25% crit chance against shocked enemies and 40% increased magnitude of shocked we inflict with critical hits. So this is giving us 40 shock magnitude, which is another multiplier for the build. And General Electric gives us that chance to shock and attack and cast speed with our lightning skills. Then we're over here to our crit cluster. This is 30% more damage if we dealt the crit, 20% more damage if we dealt the crit, and 20% more damage if we dealt the crit. So we're getting an additional like 70% damage as soon as we crit, which is disgusting. And then this is where we get to something very new to discuss with the build. This is probably technically the biggest change. This is a Megalomaniac Diamond. This is basically like an amulet anoint that you can get skills on. You can get up to 3 skills. You can only have one of these. And I was shopping for a bunch of these, looking around. And the one that I got was pretty good. They're kind of hard to search for. Once again, at the end of the video, I'll show you how to search for them. But you can get like almost any skill on these, and basically what it does is it gives me the skills for free. Like I don't have to spend any skill points, it just allocates those nodes. So now on my build, I get Essence of the Mountain from that jewel. So now I get 5% of my damage as extra cold damage and 20% increased freeze buildup. So now we're having like no issues at all, like freezing on the build ever. And so to give you an idea of just how crazy that is, for example, on my Herald of Thunder right now, I'm doing 4,300 cold damage. If I take this off, I go down to 3,300. So like, we're basically getting 25% of our damage just from this diamond as cold, which is really good. And we get that 20% freeze buildup, which is just massive. The other thing that this allocates is Crushing Verdict. This is not something that I care deeply about. I really just wanted an essence of the Mountain Megalomaniac, but Crushing Verdict is actually pretty sick. This is a node that gives us 5% reduced attack speed, which obviously isn't great, but it does give us 50% increased attack damage, which I was pretty fine with. Obviously, not a huge fan of the reduced attack speed, but, putting this on, just to give you an idea of this jewel, on our lightning arrow, we're at 96,000 right now. We take that off, and we're losing about almost 10,000 damage from this thing, but the bigger thing that we're getting from it is the Essence of the Mountain for the damage as extra cold and the freeze buildup. There's a lot of things that you could get from this. For example, I saw one for Doomsayer that I was trying to buy. Doomsayer is what I'm anointing on my amulet right now. This gives us Herald skills, have 30% increased area of effect, and they deal 30% increased damage. This is huge for clear speed, but you could technically get like a Megalomaniac that has Doomsayer on it, and then you could anoint like Essence of the Mountain on your amulet. So there's a lot of things that you could do. with this. But yeah, that is what we're using in this jewel socket. And then we come up to Spectral Ward for extra energy shield from our evasion body armor. If you have a low evasion body armor, like if you've got like a 1000 evasion body armor, you don't need to spec these points. I'm going to be honest. It's only really valuable if you have a very large evasion chest piece. If you don't have a big evasion chest piece, you can spend these points. Going up to Inner Faith isn't bad for 20% increased evasion rating and max energy shield. You could also, go and do the double back to pick up Cat-like and Blur would be pretty good. And then there's also, technically, you could maybe try to get to High Alert with those points. But this is very valuable if you have a high evasion body armor. Not super valuable if you don't. And then our last jewel here is this double attack speed herald damage one that allocates some extra dexterity on a lucky corruption. And we also got some accuracy there. This one's not super crazy. I lose like 4,000 damage if I take that one off. For our stat page, by the way, I'm at 205 spirit. I'm at 66 strength, 215 dexterity, 197 intelligence. We've got our resistance is capped, and then I'm like just shy of chaos, but chaos is honestly like relatively telegraphed, so I'm not too worried about that. And then I've got 2,118 life and 861 energy shield. I was doing some build helps on stream, and a lot of people were saying like, hey, I'm having like struggling with survivability. So I'd look at their gear, and they would have like less than 1,400 life and doing T15 maps. Energy shield and evasion are super valuable, but you do still want some life on this build. I was looking at a lot of pieces of gear that had no life. Getting life on your gear is very, very valuable. It's not like as powerful as a defensive tool as energy shield, for sure. And hopefully they're buffing like health and evasion when these patch notes come out. But if you're not getting any life on your gear, when you finally do get hit through your layers of evasion, you are going to get hit really, really hard. So definitely try to keep your life up a bit if you can. Now let's go over our gear. I've got good gear. I don't have like insane levels of gear. To give you an idea, my quiver and my bow together cost 19 divine, which might sound like a lot, but like in the grand scheme of things, with how like expensive like a quiver and bow can be, we're technically pretty budget. The big thing about my bow is it's got big crit chance and big crit damage bonus. When we were doing gear helps, a lot of people were sending me their bows with like 1% crit chance. That's not very good because all of your crit chance is based off of your quiver. This isn't like 4% increased crit chance. It's 4% crit chance. This 9.43 is what all of your crit chance increases are going to be based off of. So if you can find something with higher crit chance, I think that's really great, because, you're just going to end up with more crit chance if your base is higher and all of your stats are going to be building off of your base. And so getting a good base crit chance on your bow, super valuable. This bow has, just to give you an idea, 345 fizz DPS and 62 elemental DPS for a total of 407 DPS. And then we've got some, mana on kill, which is pretty nice. Just a small amount though. But yeah, that's my bow. I do use this bow sometimes in maps. This bow I actually built myself, so it's not that great. It's only 294 DPS, but it's got the increased elemental damage with attacks. It's got the increased fizz. It's got added fizz. It's got crit chance, crit damage. This bow came out pretty perfect. It's just on the lower end of damage, but we can actually kind of make do with that because the additional arrow helps with clear speed. We're doing so much damage that like I'm still one tapping using this thing, and then the like additional arrow really, really helps for clearing. So I will use both of these mainly. Like 99% of the footage that you're seeing is most likely using this thing, but I do like this for mapping sometimes. The one thing to note about a dual string is that dual strings have lower base damage, and the additional arrow doesn't really help for bossing, just because, you can only have so many lightning rods in the ground. So when you're like prepping this on a boss and then you're firing it while they're going, the additional arrow is not doing too much. So, I don't think you really need a dual string for bossing. You can go for like a higher damage bow and then, use whatever. I think the extra arrow counts for technically about like ballpark 60 DPS. So if you've got like a 340 DPS dual string, and you're comparing that to like a 400 DPS composite bow, or like a single shot bow, those are about even in my mind. So I'd like sacrifice about 60 damage, or 60 DPS, for like the extra arrow, and then obviously that doesn't really matter for bossing. For the rest of the gear, big energy shield helmet. We are scaling our evasion off of our energy shield, and we get 2 evasion rating per 1 max energy shield. So like this is almost 800 evasion rating on our helmet just from subterfuge mask, which is ridiculous. And then I've got a bunch of energy shield, a ton of max life, and some reses on this. For our rings, we got big fizz and cold damage, getting like a increased cold or like increased lightning damage, or increased cold, or like double attack damage rolls can help your damage out a ton. This for me right now, if I take this off, is like technically 8,000 damage, which is pretty freaking sick. On our chest piece, big evasion rating. I've got spirit and then some reses. Our other ring, we're using some added damage, increased lightning damage, and then a ton of reses. My amulet, I would like to upgrade to a plus level of projectiles amulet. That's one thing that I'm actually looking to upgrade, because like this amulet I've been wearing since like level 75. Mine's just got some increased max life, spirit, all res, fire res. But if I could squeak in a like plus level of projectiles instead of that strength, I'd be very, very happy. My quiver is really good. It's not insane. The big thing that I'd be looking for here is changing the final stat to like plus level of projectiles, or mana on kill, or attack speed. All would be really great. But crit chance, added cold, increased damage with bow skills, projectile speed, crit chance, crit damage is all perfect. I wouldn't change any of those stats. I like all of them. And then like for the like god tier bow, I think it's either plus level of projectiles, most likely for the most damage, and attack speed and mana would be nice. I haven't seen a bow with those stats for sale yet, so you know, here's to hoping. For the gloves, hand of wisdom in action, you already know what it is. Stack dex, stack intelligence, and you get way more damage. For the belt, we are using the Headhunter. I made a pretty long video on this, but basically Headhunter gives you the ability to steal abilities from rares when you kill them, and this feels really good. So like one of the things that can be kind of daunting when you run into a map is if you run a map with a bunch of hard modifiers, and it's like monsters fire additional projectiles or monsters get additional damage as cold. You could just steal all those buffs from rares, and rares have some crazy buffs that can give you tons of movement speed. Like if you can steal proximal tangibility from a rare, and so for 20 seconds, nothing can damage you unless they're literally point blank. There's so many things that you can steal from rares, and all of them stack. So when you do a breach, which this is mainly good for, you can get to like 35 plus power-ups on your character. This is like the most fun I've had in the game, is using this Headhunter belt, because you just snowball in maps, and the harder the maps you're doing, the crazier your character gets. And not only is this giving us a ton of damage, but it's also giving me a ton of survivability. One of the things that can kill you is getting swarmed. If you don't have enough clear speed, if enemies are getting close to you and like stomping on you, especially in breaches, you can die. And a Headhunter gives us the clear speed that we need, and the movement speed and the power to just dominate breaches. Like it's not even a concern anymore dying in them. So that's really, really cool. And then for my boots, I got some movement speed, max life, mana, rarity, dex, and lightning res. These boots are pretty great for me. I don't think I'd change too much. Technically could lose the mana for some like extra evasion rating. I also would be open to getting some like energy shield evasion boots, just because I'm not really gaining anything too much from those. But yeah, that is our setup. All right, now we're going to talk trading. I'm going to leave some like trade searches in the description so you guys can help find some of the things. There's like, for example, a bunch of bows with like literally the exact stats that I'm rocking right now for trade, starting at like 1 divine all the way up to like some better rolls for like, you know, this one's got everything and plus level of projectiles for 5 divine orbs. I might actually buy that. That might be gone by the time you watch this video. But yeah, I'll leave a bunch of trade searches up for a ton of gear, but I specifically want to talk about how to acquire some of these jewels. And so we're going to do Against the Darkness first. And there's not really like a great way to do this. I'll show you what I do to find good ones, though. Is technically, right, if a Against the Darkness is listed and it's really good and it's got really good value, it's not going to be up for long. These are bought very quickly. There's like over 7,000 listed right now, and they go up very, very fast. And so, for example, if we search, you'll see all of these are getting listed seconds ago. And so what I do is when I type in Against the Darkness on the search, I just click this button over here, and this will only show me things that are getting listed in the past few seconds to minutes. And this is where you can find people selling things for cheap, or things that are undervalued, or, you know, things that are exactly at value. This is an Against the Darkness with 4% damage, extra lightning, and 3% increased strength at 8 divine. That's incredibly cheap for like stat stackers. They fucking love shit like that. Sorry for the swearing, but that's like very, very underpriced. Here's a damage is extra cold for 9 divine. What else do we got? Obviously, we're kind of doing this live. Here's a +4 fire res, 4% of damage is extra lightning damage for 9 divine. Here's some fire res, extra damage is cold for 16 divines. This is a plus chaos res, max life damage is cold for 20. That's pretty freaking insane. You can go for either cold or lightning. Just note that cold is typically double the price of lightning Against the Darkness. Let's see if we've got anything else here. There's a extra damage is cold with +1 max chaos res for 11 divine. But basically, if you're looking for something like this, you can kind of just sit on this trade page and like refresh every once in a while to find some good things. For the Megalomaniac, what you're going to want to do is go to poe2db.tw. I'll have a link in the description. And then you go over to Unique, and then go to Other Unique, and then click Megalomaniac Diamond. By the way, these are like entirely optional. I don't want y'all to feel like you like need to have these in the build, mainly because there's so many skills and they roll so randomly that it's going to be like, you know, borderline impossible to get exactly the one that I have. But for example, if we just want like an Essence of the Mountain here, we can type in Essence of the Mountain, click that, and then we can see that we could get an Essence of the Mountain and Endurance for 5 divines, for example. And I usually pull up the max roll planner because the in-game skill tree does a really bad job of like actually highlighting what a node is, versus the like max roll planner will tell you exactly where it is. So like this is endurance, +2 max endurance charges. Obviously, we don't care about that. If you want to find like 2 that are like both synergistic with your build, it could be a bit harder. But there's so many things that can roll in this. You can get Doomsayer, you can get Subterfuge. Kind of depends on what you need for the build. Like if you're looking for things, like for example, I was looking at ones that can allocate High Alert. High Alert's 50% increased evasion rating when on full life. So if you wanted like a High Alert, let's say you had a bunch of damage, you wanted some more survivability, you can go High Alert, and you could get a High Alert one for like 2 divines. I don't know what Prolonged Fury or Casting Cascade is, but if you want to find some of these, you can. There's some pretty cool things, and they can roll up to 3 skills. If you're going to find 3 that are all synergistic, might be a bit harder. This one has High Alert and Throat Seeker. Throat Seeker is actually a pretty cool skill. Throat Seeker should be this one that gives us a 60% crit damage bonus, but reduced crit chance. Not sure if that's totally worth for the build, but that is a lot of extra damage. But yeah, just to give you an idea, that is how you search for Megalomaniac. You can go to this website and then type in whatever skill. Just note that this isn't 100% accurate. So a lot of the times it'll list things that it says aren't for sale, but they are for sale. I tested this myself because I saw a lightning rod one going for sale, and then I clicked in to the like lightning rod thing, and it said that there was none for sale. So it doesn't work for everything. For example, if we look, it says there's no Doomsayers for sale, but I literally like saw multiple when I was like scrolling. And so like the other way, if what you're looking for isn't up for sale, you can just do the exact same trick where we go Megalomaniac, search, and then try to find things that have just been listed. This has got, that's one's 50 divine. I was about to say those are two pretty good passives, but 50 divines, a load of divines. Let's see if we find anything good here. So this one's kind of insane. This is Path of Winter and Spectral Ward for 2 divine. Spectral Ward is obviously the node that gives us +1 max energy shield per our evasion rating. And then this one is 18% cold damage and 30% increased freeze buildup. So like this is just kind of an example of something that you could pick up that you could like alter the build for us. Like, you know, if you picked up that, you could not have to come all the way up here, grab Spectral Ward. You could just put in that node and then you get Spectral Ward and then you get, you know, a bunch of cold, and then like if you wanted to, you could technically change those points from pathing to Spectral Ward and like pick up Essence of the Mountain, for example, or pick up anything, honestly. But those jewels can kind of open up the build to certain possibilities, and you know, 2 divine for that is pretty insane. So yeah, that's how you search for one of those. Guys, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let's see what the patch notes do, and obviously we'll be adjusting our builds if there are any changes needed. I'll catch y'all on the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.